Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is September 18th, 2020, and these are the top stories of the day. To start things off, I want to share the Famitsu hardware and software sales reports. This is coming to us from Japan. I'm reading it from ResetEra.com's presentation by Chris1964, since it's nice and clear and it has a fun community to talk about this stuff with. To begin, let's look at software. We've got Ring Fit Adventure, which was number one last week. Once again, number one this week with another 43,000 copies sold. Animal Crossing, no surprise there, coming in at number two on Nintendo Switch, another 31,000. Then we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Minecraft Dungeons Hero Edition. Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics coming in at number 5. Marvel's Avengers on PS4 at number 6. But an important thing to look at here is that drop. That 82% drop is big. And, it would be one thing if the game opened up with 500,000 and it had an 82% drop, but still managed to sell quite a bit, right? But an 82% drop over a small launch of, 43,000, you're looking at 7,000 in your second week. Not very impressive. Coming in at number 7 and 8 is Metal Max Xeno Reborn for the PS4 and Nintendo Switch, respectively. They're only about 500 copies apart in sales, which is great if you are a third party in Japan. It gives you incentive to release your game on both systems because you see that, hey, there's a comparable market for Nintendo Switch, and people enjoy having these console games on the Switch and being able to take them on the go. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate comes in at number 9 and Pokemon Sword and Shield at 10. Now I do have some more data this week, which extends into number 11 with Splatoon 2 and Ghost of Tsushima at number 12, and the list continues. If you look down, you see a lot of Nintendo. It's definitely a greater percentage of Nintendo Switch games than anything else. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild still hanging in there, number 17, impressive. Actually, we're going into, top 30 territory here, and you'll see that in the top 30, it was made up of 23 Nintendo Switch games and 7 PlayStation 4 games. That's a pretty big shift from, even the previous generation. During Wii versus PS3 days, Wii U versus PS3 days especially, Wii was still the dominant platform, not Wii U, but PS3 held its own more against Wii than what PS4 is currently doing against Nintendo Switch, if that makes sense. So props to Nintendo. They found a system that's really nailing it in that Japanese market. And on the hardware side of things, once again, you see that, just in the end of summer, not a particularly crazy week, Nintendo Switch is just doing phenomenally well. It's exceeding Nintendo's own sales expectations for the year. And this doesn't just go in Japan, this is everywhere, worldwide this year. Last year at this time, they sold 51,619 units. This year, in this week, this time frame, 83,920. That's a big jump. It did well over its last week. It's now clear past 15 million and doesn't really have any signs of slowing down. It will be interesting to see how this hardware chart is affected next week, because next week when we get the report, we will have Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which probably will bump up the hardware. It no doubt will be number one in software. It's going to be awesome to see another, boom, 300,000 place entry. We don't know exactly how big it'll debut, especially because it's a physical release only in terms of what we see here on the Famitsu charts. The eShop, comes out at the same time, but we don't get that data till later from Nintendo themselves. But that'll be exciting to see, and how many people are new to Nintendo Switch thanks to the Monster Hunter release, or announcement I should say. Monster Hunter Rise was shown off in the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, and Monster Hunter is huge in Japan. So I expect that thanks to it and Stories 2, we're going to see some really big Nintendo Switch hardware shipments and sales as a result from now until March next year and summer and beyond. And it's just going to get wild for Nintendo. It's only going to get better. But that'll do it for software and hardware talk. Hey, and look, I only spent 5 minutes on it this time. Next up is more Nintendo news. I say more Nintendo news because honestly, when you look at the software and hardware charts of Japan, it's so Nintendo dominated that it feels like a Nintendo news story, even though it is, technically neutral territory because it is talking about everything. You've got Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo in there. It's just so Nintendo dominant that it feels kind of like Nintendo news when you talk about sales in Japan. But now for official Nintendo news, Nintendo had its most recent corporate management policy briefing, including a Q&A session, and we got a decent amount of stuff out of it. One of the things that was important that I wanted to discuss is that Nintendo said that the Nintendo Switch is now entering what they consider the middle of its life cycle, and so they have many more titles currently under development to be released in the next fiscal year, which means until the end of March 2022 and beyond. So that's really good to see. Like, usually in the middle of a console's lifespan is when you really start seeing some heavy hitters come out because games have been in development for a longer time. They've got this forward momentum helping them. More sales, a system's hot. Nintendo Switch is really hot in this case. So once Nintendo got the feel of, okay, the system's going somewhere, it's doing really well, after being on the market for 6 months, after being on the market for a year and a half, the games that were started to be made for it, probably summer/November of 2018, like a year and a half into the system's life, 19, 20, 21. These are some 3-year titles that come next holiday season, come early March or whatever, 2022, they're the titles that are going to be really impressive. We've got some surprises, no doubt about it. And likewise, third parties, we will probably see a greater shift in third parties make games for Nintendo Switch because now they see, we have succeeded with the likes of Diablo 3 on the Nintendo Switch, with Street Fighter, with Mega Man, with Dragon Ball, with Mortal Kombat, with Doom Eternal. Well, not Doom Eternal yet, but with Doom and Wolfenstein 2, So it's less of a risk, it's less of a gamble for third parties to put their games on Nintendo Switch because now they know it is successful. It is a successful system. Third-party games do sell well on it. It's not just people buying Mario and Zelda. Yes, that makes up the majority of sales, is Nintendo's own IP, but it's doing well enough for third parties that third parties are more likely to make their SKUs for it. So I think we'll see some big games in 2021, 2022, and beyond from both Nintendo and third-party partners. So that's exciting. Another thing that was interesting was regarding Nintendo's continuing evolving stance on hardware, whether it's screen advancement technology, dual screen tech, touch screen tech, and how they always wish to pioneer new tech. And I think that's admirable. They've always had that stance, and I think it's impressive to see that going forward. They're still committed to using resources to develop technology in the pursuit of fun and comfortable experiences. Not everyone will love the introduction of motion controls, but motion controls is new and it's important because it shakes up the video game industry. It brings new people in that might not have already been a gamer for 10 years or 15 years, right? It may do well with folks that didn't have the physical ability to find motion control capabilities of their thumbs. They weren't dexterous enough, but they could make a bigger, more grand motion with their arms. They don't have to be as precise yet. They could still get, fun results on screen from their own actions and feel good about that. So, like I said, not every introduction will be for everyone, but it seems like it's always Nintendo's hope to try to expand, evolve the industry, and really make it for everyone. And I love that. We also got some news from Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto discussing how the Mario franchise continues to evolve with each new installment. You know, they mentioned a fun thing of, 30 years ago there was a survey outside of Japan, and it showed how Mario was more recognizable than Mickey Mouse. He felt odd that it was even being compared between the two, Mario and Mickey Mouse. Kind of felt bad that Mickey, you know, got knocked down. But the realization is that, Mario is getting bigger. They want to keep on adding something new to expand the Mario universe. They mentioned a little bit of they're working on the Super Mario movie as we speak. They hope that it will be enjoyed by an even wider range of people. I love that news. I'm excited for it. As you can see, I'm wearing a Mario shirt today, so I'm definitely a fan. And they also went on to talk about Nintendo Switch sales, how they've passed 60 million this early into the life. We have yet to hit 4 years, and we're already getting close to 70 million at this point. That's the next 10 million mark to hit. The system is selling better than they anticipated originally. Animal Crossing has further opened up the Nintendo Switch user base far more than in a typical year. Nintendo talks about momentum and how much it has expanded, and that's really in great part thanks to Animal Crossing. This was a perfect combination, a perfect success story for Nintendo, because Animal Crossing came out in a time where, unfortunately, we had a worldwide pandemic, but it brought a lot of new gamers to the system and gave them a lot of fun and opportunity to play, especially in a family, can't go outside and whatnot. So, Nintendo normally is going like this, and you have your ups and downs, and Nintendo in this case was going up a little bit higher because Switch is already successful, and then come out Animal Crossing. Wow, just this great acceleration. Normally we don't see that type of major bump till the holidays, and a really big bump with a holiday combined with a Mario or a Zelda, something like that. And here we got it in March, and Animal Crossing has helped really propel the Switch user base. So we already had evergreen titles like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and now they're continuing to sell like they were, but even at a greater level. So Nintendo is, impressed with the expansion, and now the thought is that they really can go, and this brings me up to the next topic, they really can make the Nintendo Switch life cycle last longer. There are two different systems out there. They are intended for different purposes. You've got your console for TV and for handheld. Could be switched between the two, of course. Then you have your designated, more affordable handheld only device, which is the Nintendo Switch Lite. Now, personally, I think that if they could have made the Nintendo Switch Lite also work, didn't have to include a dock, but just work with a dock or a modified mini dock, it would be even better of a deal, honestly. But they really wanted this clear definition of the two, keep the cost down for Lite, profit up, make it, totally understandable that this is one thing, this is the other thing. And that's fine, but they've got two systems. They both contribute to the same platform's overall sales, and that's a big install base. Now, whether Nintendo does or does not have a dedicated Nintendo Switch home console using the same cartridges, same controllers, all that, but it's just beefed up in power. This one would be, only for TV. It's not something that you could take on the go. Uses the same cartridges, same format. It's just it will output stuff at 4K. It will output stuff at 60 frames per second and 1440p or whatever, like Xbox Series S terms of power, perhaps. That remains to be seen, but it's interesting to hear Nintendo think now that their life cycle will probably last longer with the Nintendo Switch than previous Nintendo consoles, and I think that's a good thing. I still think that the system feels fun. It still feels fresh and new. Um, and that's saying something because it's actually 3.5 years old. Yet I pick mine up, I look at it, I play a new game, and I have a blast. The graphics are still at that level of being good. It's not going backwards too far in my mind of, ooh, I'm playing a new game, but it doesn't look like a new game. No, it's still competing pretty well within the realm of what PS4 and Xbox One could do. Now you do look at these presentations of what PS5 and Xbox Series X can do, and you slowly start to see, because there already is a graphical, difference that you can tell between the current gen PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, but not that great that it ruins Switch at all. But you can tell, and you will start to tell more and more that as the new systems come out and their games come out with, especially in time, they will only get better and better looking. And eventually that new factor will fade from Nintendo Switch, and then it's just a really cool portable device, but it's not doing the heavy hitting graphics. But that really might not really need to. If it's got awesome looking stuff that's really good quality, like Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4, that is cutting edge on the Switch, and like I said, a brilliant game, it could be just fine toe to toe against Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 in November 2022. So maybe Nintendo's not rushed; they're not forced to make new hardware. But I wouldn't mind seeing a Nintendo Switch Plus, in 2021, and then like a Nintendo Switch 2 personally in November 2023. They also talk about in this meeting regarding Velan Studios' pitch for Mario Kart Live home circuit. They talked about how they were so impressed, Nintendo that is, that they really got to work on it very quickly, and they had a fun trial and error process, try to figure out what kind of product they were going to develop, and here you go. That's the reason why it's coming out this holiday season. So I think that's kind of neat. I think it's neat to hear behind the scenes. And if you want any more of this information, you could check out Nintendo's corporate management policy briefing Q&A with their investors and analysts. And you can have it translated to English because it's in Japanese originally. But if you go to the nintendo.co.jp website, it is there. So I thought I would touch on them. You probably got most of the important stuff from me right now. So that was fun to talk about. Thank you for listening. Next up. Now, this doesn't apply to me because I was able to secure my PlayStation 5 console and get an email from Amazon that my pre-order went through. But the next part kind of applies to everyone. Let me break that down. PlayStation 5, just had its debut launch date, debut launch price, and it was said that tomorrow pre-orders will go live as of September 17th. That would be there tomorrow. Things started dropping on the 16th. It was kind of chaotic. Stores were selling out. Things were going up, coming down. People were refreshing. It was kind of crazy. A little bit of it was cleared up by the next day, the official day that it was supposed to be made available, which was the 17th. And once again, things were chaotic. I was able to secure my pre-order for the PlayStation 5 disc version. So I got an email right after from Amazon, like many people did, saying, congratulations. Boom, you're in. And then many people, and this is where I say myself included, did get an email saying, it might not ship on the day that it's intended due to stock and whatnot. Now, a lot of people are upset. Personally, I don't mind, especially when we found out that some of these next-gen titles on PS5 are actually PS4 games as well. If I have to play Spider-Man Miles Morales on my PS4 for a couple of weeks until I could pop it in the PS5, that's fine. Actually, if anything, it makes you really not need the PlayStation 5 this holiday season, unless if you absolutely need some of the next gen titles that are only coming out on it, like Demon's Souls or Ratchet and Clank, which looks like a 2021 title at this point, you know. But um, I don't mind if I get it, 4 days late, 7, 10, 2 weeks late, 10 days, 2 weeks late, whatever. That's okay. Hopefully I could get a day one because I want to do that unboxing. I want to be there live for uh, that feeling of opening up a new console alongside everyone else, that global launch, hooking it up to the TV. Like, that's all fun. But honestly, there's nothing day one that I think I have to play so badly that I will be so sad and devastated if I have to wait another 10 days. It's all good. It's all good. Hopefully you feel the same way. But a lot of people are definitely upset. And last but not least, Super Mario 3D All-Stars has hit today. Yes, I went to Best Buy this morning. I picked it up. I'm wearing my Mario shirt still. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I suggest picking it up. It's a lot of fun. This isn't the game that a lot of us wanted it to be. I was talking to Andre Seegers, as a matter of fact, from Game Explain this morning about, how we had a similar thought on what we were hoping from the game. Up-res Super Mario Sunshine and Odyssey, if we could get it running at a better frame rate, cool. If they could switch some camera angles around, high res, widescreen, all that. Don't need to touch too much, but improve some mechanics, a little bit of texture work, pretty good. Super Mario 64, we'd love to see that grand remaster, remake treatment, widescreen, a Super Mario Odyssey style graphics engine, or a visual style comparable to the original artwork from the Super Mario 64 instruction booklet and stuff like that. Remastered soundtrack, behind the scenes interviews, breakdown on what the game would be, an orchestrated soundtrack. I mean, the stuff that we talked about back and forth was really funny because in Game Explain's own 40-minute or so long talk about what they hoped this game would be back when we didn't even know it was official really matched up well with mine. And it's neat talking to fellow passionate fans like Andre and hearing the rest of the Game Explain crew, share that. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's a good thing that that's what a lot of people wanted, because that just shows you the passion that we all have for Mario. But it's hard to say a bad thing, but it's an unfortunate thing that most of that didn't happen. It's a very simple, very easy port with some enhancements for Super Mario 64. I'm grateful that I get to play it in HD, at least 720p, on my handheld, in handheld mode. It's nice getting to play with my kids on my modern TV. Yes, I actually did have Super Mario 64 on my Wii U, so we did previously play it, at our house on the big screen TV, and this obviously looks better. But with Sunshine, I guess you can only have played it officially on the Nintendo GameCube, which I still have hooked up on my old school, 21-inch boob tube TV. So I do appreciate that also, to have in portable mode, have the modern convenience of playing it on the bigger screen. It is nice in widescreen. It does look crisp and clear. Super Mario Galaxy, though, it wasn't just a Wii experience, because for me, I did have, and I still do have, a Wii U. So in addition to being able to play Super Mario Galaxy on my old Wii, which was on my old 21-inch 480p TV, I was able to play Super Mario Galaxy on my modern big screen 1080p 60-inch TV, thanks to the Wii U. And it wasn't the most clear, it wasn't intended for 1080p, but it worked. But once again, I'm happy that it is in 1080p now. It does look much better. The game holds up so well, gameplay-wise, control-wise. art-wise that, you know, if they bumped up a little bit of the polygons and a little bit of the shadows, this game could still pass for a game that would come out new now in 2020, despite it being, 13 years older. And that's amazing. That's just how good of a title it is. It doesn't really show its age much in a lot of ways. That being said, it was kind of a safe port. 1080p for two of them, Mario 64 getting the 720p treatment. I would have loved it, and don't get me wrong, I love the package. I love what we're getting. I think it's still worth it for $60, because at the end of the day, you look at it as 60 for Mario, 50 for Sunshine, 50 for Galaxy. That's $160 in games, based off of their prices in their respective years, with inflation and whatnot. It actually cost more money in a sense back then than it does now. So it's over $160 in currency content that you're getting for 60. And you can play it in portable mode. And you get this cool soundtrack. And they all technically do look better than they ever have done before officially. Yet it feels kind of safe. And I love it. But what would have made it go through the roof for me and for Andre and for a lot of folks is if we had the ability to swap, particularly in Super Mario 64, between its classic look presented in this game's style, how they went with 720p, and this grand full-on remake look, kind of like Activision did with Spyro the Dragon trilogy or Crash Bandicoot trilogy or Crash Team Racing, or Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. Like, the ability to switch between them two. You could have your cake and eat it too. Come on, Princess Peach's cake. You could have it and eat it too. That's what we could have gotten. Then I don't think anybody would have complained about this thing being 60, because you're like, well, you're getting 4 games kind of, in Super Mario 64 with, modern quality of life, functionality, and visuals. That alone, you could say that's worth $60. Like, I would pay $60 for just a beautiful, fully orchestrated version of Super Mario 64 with some behind-the-scenes stuff and a 2-player fun mode that they threw in. $60, that one game, worth it. So you look at what we got, still worth it, but it could have been so much more. Yet what we got is still very nice. If you told anybody that, hey, wait 10 years, wait 15 years, you're going to have these 3 games looking better than ever before, all on one system that you could also take on the go. Mind blown, right? So we just get very used to being treated so well by companies, and it's not Nintendo not treating us well here. It's just it's not the best, most pro-consumer package. It's not as big as it could be, especially celebrating, wrapping it around this 35th anniversary and stuff like that. But, overall, I love it. It's a joy to play. It's wonderful looking at Galaxy in 1080p. It really is. And I'm having fun with the soundtrack. We had lunch today, played the music in the background, and it was just fun. So anyways, that's it for video game news. You have to let me know what you think. How do you feel about the hardware-software situation in Japan? What did you think of all of that Nintendo talk from the corporate management policy briefing? Were you able to secure yourself a PlayStation 5? Did you get Super Mario 3D All-Stars? And if so, let me know what you think. Alright everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com signing out. Thank you for watching with me today. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time for more video game news with PGN. Okay, bye.